Previously on the Black Mafia Heiress and her Korean fiancé's deadly betrayal. Amara Chen's world ended when she discovered her fiancé orchestrated her family's destruction. Her parents were taken. Her father's empire fell. And the boy she loved revealed himself as a monster wearing a familiar face. But Amara Chen isn't just a grieving daughter anymore. She's a warrior with 24 hours to do the impossible. Rescue her parents from the Steel Serpents' most secure facility before Dante realizes she's played him. The clock is ticking. The Serpents think they've won. And they're about to learn their fatal mistake. Welcome to part 2. This is where blood gets spilled. She found Jay 3 blocks away, waiting by the car. The detective took one look at Amara's blood-soaked hoodie and swore. Hospital. Now. No time. We have to move. You're bleeding. I'll live. But my parents won't if we don't act fast. Amara climbed into the car, pressing her hand against the wound. Dante has a decoy drive. He thinks I have the real one. I bought us 24 hours. 24 hours to do what? Rescue my parents from the Busan facility. Before tomorrow night when Dante realizes I don't actually have what he wants. Jay started the car, pulling into traffic. That's insane. That facility is going to be heavily guarded. We'd need weapons, backup, a tactical team. We have me. And we have you. And we have the element of surprise. They think I'm defeated. They think I'll show up tomorrow with the drive like a good little hostage. They're not expecting us to hit them tonight. Tonight, you're injured, exhausted, and we have no intel on that facility's layout or security. I have Dragon's heart, Amara said, pulling the real drive from where she'd hidden it in her bra. The actual one. My father kept it on him always, but it fell off during the crash. This is everything, including architectural plans for every property the Dragons ever monitored, which includes that Busan facility. My father was watching the Serpents for years. He knew about their black sites. Jay glanced at the drive, then at Amara. You played Dante. I learned from the best. My father always said the key to survival is making your enemies think they've won until the moment you strike. Amara plugged the drive into her phone, accessing files. Here. Busan facility. Former shipping warehouse converted to a holding site. 3 floors, underground detention cells, guard rotations, everything. This is still suicide. Then we die trying. But I'm not leaving my parents in that place for another day. Not when I know what the Serpents do to prisoners. Amara met Jay's eyes. You don't have to come. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. Your family drew lines. My sister died because the Serpents don't have any. If we pull this off, if we get your parents out and expose the Serpents' operation, maybe Seoul gets a little less evil. Maybe my sister's death means something. Or we die and Seoul gets a lot more evil. Either way, I'm in. Jay turned the car south, heading toward Busan. 4-hour drive. That gives us time to plan. And for you to tell me exactly how you think 2 people are going to infiltrate a fortified gang facility and extract 2 prisoners without getting killed. Amara pulled up the facility schematics on her phone, studying them with her father's tactical mind. First, we're going to need bigger guns. And second, she looked at Jay with a smile that was all sharp edges and deadly promise. We're going to teach the Serpents what happens when you corner a dragon. If you're still here, you already know, this isn't just another love story. Stay locked in, because Amara's war is only just beginning. They made it 20 minutes outside Seoul before the Serpents found them. Jay spotted the tail first, 3 black vehicles closing fast on the highway. No subtlety, no pretense. The Serpents had figured out Amara wasn't coming quietly. We've got company, Jay said, accelerating. Amara checked the side mirror and felt her stomach drop. Dante's people. He must have had trackers on the estate grounds. Followed us out. Can we lose them? Not on open highway. We need to get to cover, somewhere with civilians. They won't risk a public shootout. But the Serpents didn't care about public perception. The first shots came as they approached an overpass, bullets pinging off Jay's car. The detective swerved, cursing, pushing the vehicle faster. Amara rolled down her window, leaning out with her weapon drawn. What are you doing? Jay shouted. Buying us time. Amara fired back at their pursuers, her aim steady despite the moving vehicle. She hit a tire on the lead car, watching it swerve and crash into the barrier. 2 vehicles left, but they were gaining ground. The highway curved ahead, leading toward the Han River Bridge. Traffic was light this time of night, but there were still civilian vehicles scattered across the lanes. Jay wove between them, driving with precision born of years behind the wheel. But the serpents were better armed, better trained, and absolutely willing to kill innocent bystanders. A bullet shattered their rear window. Jay jerked the wheel, nearly losing control. Amara fired again, emptying her magazine into the second pursuing vehicle. She hit something critical because the car suddenly decelerated, smoke pouring from its engine. One vehicle left. But it was gaining. They hit the bridge doing 80 miles per hour, and that's when Amara saw the trap. Two more serpent vehicles waited at the far end, blocking the exit. They were boxed in. No escape forward, enemies behind, and the Han River 200 feet below. Ideas would be good right now, Jay said, her voice tight. Amara looked at the bridge railing, then at the dark water below. Her mind raced through impossible calculations. The height, the impact, the current, their chances of survival. Approximately 0. But 0 was better than what waited if the serpents took them alive. Can you swim? Amara asked. Jay glanced at her like she'd lost her mind. What? Can you swim? Yes, but... The serpent vehicle rammed them from behind, sending their car spinning. Jay fought for control, but physics was against them. They slammed into the bridge railing, metal screaming, and for one horrible moment, Amara thought they'd go over accidentally. Instead, the car stopped, teetering on the edge. Both vehicles hemming them and opened their doors, and armed men emerged. Dante stepped out of the lead vehicle, his expression cold fury. Get out, he shouted. Both of you. Now! Amara met Jay's eyes. When I say go, you floor it. Aim for the railing. Don't hesitate. That's suicide. It's survival. They want us alive for what they'll do to us. I'd rather take my chances with the river. Jay's hands tightened on the wheel. Outside, the serpents were advancing, weapons drawn. Dante was shouting orders, telling his men to disable the car, capture them intact. They had maybe 10 seconds before it was too late. Go! Amara screamed. Jay floored it. The car leaped forward, engine roaring, and crashed through the damaged railing. For one weightless moment, they were flying. Then gravity reasserted itself, and they were falling, plummeting toward the Han River with terminal velocity. The impact was like hitting concrete. Amara felt the airbag deploy, slamming into her chest, knocking the breath from her lungs. Water exploded through the broken windows, freezing and immediate. The car began to sink, dragged down by its weight. Amara's training kicked in through the panic. She unbuckled her seatbelt, grabbed Jay, pulled her free. The detective was dazed, bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but conscious. They kicked toward the surface as the car disappeared into the depths below them. Breaking the surface, Amara gasped for air. Her side wound screamed in agony, and her twisted ankle from the earlier escape chose that moment to remind her it existed. The current was strong, pulling them downriver, away from the bridge. She could see lights up there, serpent vehicles, men shouting. But they were too far away, and the darkness was their friend now. Swim, Jay gasped beside her. Sure. That way. They swam, or tried to. Amara's ankle made every kick agony, and her side wound bled fresh blood into the water. She felt herself slowing, weakening. The cold was seeping into her bones, making her limbs heavy. She'd survived the fall, survived the impact, but the river might finish what the serpents started. Her head slipped under. Water filled her mouth, her lungs. She kicked weakly, but her body wasn't responding anymore. Everything hurt. Everything was cold. And part of her, the exhausted, traumatized part, whispered that maybe it was okay to stop fighting. Maybe it was okay to let go. Then hands grabbed her, pulling her up. Jay's face, determined and fierce, filled her vision. Don't you dare. Come on, Amara. You're Victor Chen's daughter. Don't quit on me now. They made it to shore somehow, crawling onto a concrete embankment far downriver from the bridge. Amara collapsed, water streaming from her clothes, every part of her body screaming in protest. Jay fell beside her, both of them breathing hard, alive against all odds. Above them, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn was coming. They'd survived the night. That was insane, Jay finally said. That was necessary. We lost everything. Weapons, supplies, transportation. And now the serpents know we're alive and coming for them. Amara rolled onto her back, staring at the sky. No, they think we're dead. They saw us go over, saw the car sink. As far as Dante knows, we drowned. Which gives us the element of surprise. Surprise only works if we're alive to use it. You're bleeding, injured, and we're miles from anywhere. Amara forced herself to sit up, checking her injuries. The side wound had reopened, but it wasn't fatal. Her ankle was swollen but functional. She was battered, exhausted, and operating on pure spite at this point. But she was breathing. Your apartment, Amara said. Is it compromised? Probably not. The Serpents don't know about my involvement yet. They think you were working alone. Then that's where we go. We regroup, treat these injuries, and plan the Busan operation properly. Jay stared at her in disbelief. You're still planning to go through with it? After this? More than ever. Dante thinks I'm dead. That means he'll be relaxed tomorrow. Confident. He'll show up at the port facility expecting an easy night. Maybe some cleanup. He won't be ready for us. Us? You mean you? I'm not letting you walk into that alone. You don't have to do this, Jay. You've already done more than anyone could ask. My sister didn't get a choice about dying to the Serpents. But I have a choice about whether her death means something. I'm seeing this through. Jay stood, offering Amara her hand. Come on. My place is 40 minutes on foot. We need to move before someone spots us. They walked through Seoul as the city woke up around them. Two women, soaked and bloody, moving through the early morning crowds like ghosts. People avoided eye contact, the universal language of minding your own business. By the time they reached Jay's apartment, Amara was running on fumes. The apartment was small, utilitarian, exactly what Amara expected from a detective who spent most of her time working. Jay immediately pulled out a first aid kit and went to work on Amara's injuries. The side wound needs stitches, Jay said, examining it. But I can butterfly it closed for now. The ankle is sprained, not broken. You'll need to wrap it tight. I've had worse. A lie, but saying it made Amara feel stronger. Jay worked in silence, her hands competent and sure. When she finished, she sat back. Shower's that way. I'll find you dry clothes. Then we need to eat and sleep. You're no good to your parents dead on your feet. Amara wanted to argue, but Jay was right. She showered, washing away blood and river water and fear. When she emerged, Jay had laid out oversized sweats and a t-shirt. Food waited on the small kitchen table. Nothing fancy, just rice and soup, but Amara's stomach growled at the sight. They ate in silence, two warriors gathering strength for the battle ahead. Finally, Jay spoke. Tell me about your parents. Not the gang leaders. The people. Amara set down her spoon, memories flooding back. My mom left Nigeria when she was 20. Met my dad at a business conference, except it turned out both their businesses were criminal enterprises. She says it was love at first sight. He says he fell in love with her the third time she outsmarted him in negotiations. Jay smiled slightly. Sounds like a good match. They are. My dad's ruthless in business, but at home, he's just a father who taught me to fight because he wanted me to be able to protect myself. My mom's the one with the truly sharp mind. She handles the financial side, the strategic planning. Dad always said she's the real genius behind the dragons. And they're both being tortured right now because Dante wanted power. The words hit like a physical blow, but Amara needed to hear them. Needed to remember what this was really about. Not revenge, though that was part of it. But salvation. Rescue. Family. I'm going to get them back, Amara said quietly. Or die trying. Then we need a real plan. Not just rushing in with guns blazing. Jay pulled out her laptop, and Amara uploaded Dragon's Heart. Files bloomed across the screen, decades of intelligence. There, Amara said, pointing. Busan facility. Full schematics. They studied the plans, two minds working in sync. The facility was a fortress. 3 floors above ground, 2 below. The detention cells were in the basement, maximum security. Guard rotations every 4 hours. Cameras everywhere. Motion sensors. The place was designed to be impenetrable. How many guards? Jay asked. Intel says 15 to 20 at any given time. More if they're expecting trouble. Which they won't be if they think you're dead. But we're still outnumbered 10 to 1. We need an edge. Amara scrolled through more files. My father's company owns the shipping rights to that port, which means I have access codes for deliveries. We could get in posing as a supply truck. They'll check IDs. Not if we time it during shift change. Guards getting off duty, new ones coming on, everyone distracted. We have a window. Maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes to get in, locate your parents, extract them, and get out. While surrounded by armed gang members in a facility designed to prevent exactly that. Yes. Amara met Jay's eyes. I know the odds. I know this is probably suicide. But they're my parents, Jay. If I don't try, I'm not worth saving anyway. Jay studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this smart. We'll need weapons, body armor if we can get it, and a solid exit strategy. Because rescuing them doesn't mean anything if we all die before making it out. They spent the next hours planning every detail. Amara used Dragon's Heart to access her father's emergency accounts, transferring funds to purchase weapons through contacts Jay had cultivated. The detective made calls, cashed in favors, assembled an arsenal that would make a small army jealous. By the time night fell again, they were as ready as they'd ever be. Amara stood in front of Jay's bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. Her hair was pulled back in tight braids, warrior style. Body armor fit snugly under dark tactical clothing. Weapons were holstered and ready. She looked like what she was becoming, a soldier preparing for war. Jay appeared beside her, similarly equipped. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. Your father would be proud of you, you know. Or maybe horrified. Probably both. Amara smiled grimly. He always said the Chen family survived because we knew when to fight and when to run. Right now, fighting is our only option. They left Seoul under cover of darkness, driving a stolen delivery truck Jay had acquired through her criminal contacts. The 4-hour drive to Busan felt both eternal and too short. Amara used the time to review the facility layout again, memorizing every corridor, every exit, every possible complication. What if they've moved your parents? Jay asked as they approached the city. Then we improvise. But they're there. Dante wouldn't move them without confirming I was dead. He's arrogant enough to keep them in place until tomorrow night's meeting. And if you're wrong, then we've already lost everything, and this changes nothing. They arrived at the port facility at 3 in the morning. The shift change happened at 3:30, which gave them 30 minutes to get into position. The facility loomed before them, industrial and cold, surrounded by shipping containers and heavy machinery. Guard towers stood at each corner, spotlights sweeping the grounds. There, Amara whispered, pointing to the delivery entrance. That's our way in. Jay pulled the truck into line with other late-night deliveries. They wore stolen uniforms from the delivery company, faces partially obscured by caps and masks. Just 2 more workers making a routine drop-off. Nothing suspicious. The guard at the gate barely glanced at them. Delivery manifests. Amara handed over forged documents, her hands steady despite her racing heart. The guard scanned them, bored and ready for his shift to end. He waved them through. They were in. Jay parked the truck near the loading dock, and they moved quickly through the shadows. The facility was massive, warehouses connected by corridors. According to the schematics, the detention cells were in the eastern building, 2 floors down. They made it to the main building without incident, using Amara's access codes to bypass the exterior locks. Inside, the facility was dimly lit, industrial lighting casting long shadows. Voices echoed from somewhere above, guards on patrol. Basement access is this way, Amara whispered, leading them through a maze of corridors. They reached the stairwell and began their descent. 2 floors down, the air grew colder, the walls changed from industrial to reinforced concrete. This was the prison section, where they kept people they never wanted found, where they were keeping her parents. The basement level was heavily secured. Cameras covered every angle, motion sensors on every door. But Amara's father had been thorough in his intelligence gathering. She knew which cameras had blind spots, which sensors could be bypassed with the right codes. They made it to the cell block, and Amara's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Down a long corridor, doors lined both sides. Behind one of them, her parents were alive. Suffering. Waiting. Guards, Jay hissed, pulling Amara back. 2 Serpent members walked past, casual and unaware. Amara and Jay pressed into an alcove, weapons ready. But the guards passed without noticing, and the women continued forward. Amara pulled out the emergency transponder her father had given her years ago. Every Chen family member carried one, a way to locate each other in emergencies. She activated it, and the device pointed toward a cell at the end of the corridor. They approached carefully, and Amara's hands shook as she used her codes to unlock the door. It swung open with a soft hiss, and she stepped inside. The cell was small, concrete, lit by a single harsh bulb. And there, chained to the wall, beaten and bloodied but alive, were her parents. Victor Chen looked up, and his eyes went wide with disbelief. Amara? No, you shouldn't be here. Linda Chen was crying, reaching for her daughter with shaking hands. Baby. Oh God, baby. Amara rushed forward, working on their restraints. Jay stood guard at the door, watching for approaching guards. The chains came free, and Victor collapsed forward. Amara caught him, feeling how much weight he'd lost, seeing the damage the serpents had inflicted. "Can you walk?" she asked. "I'll crawl if I have to." Victor's voice was weak but determined. "How did you find us?" "Dragon's heart. Everything you taught me. Everything you prepared me for." Amara helped her mother stand, and Linda clung to her, sobbing. "We have to move," Jay urged from the doorway. "They'll be doing rounds soon." Victor looked at Jay, recognizing her as an outsider. "Who?" "Later, Dad. Right now we run." They made it halfway back to the stairwell before the alarm sounded. Someone had discovered the open cell. Lights blazed to full brightness, and sirens wailed throughout the facility. Their element of surprise was gone. "Run!" Jay shouted. They ran, Victor and Linda stumbling, but moving on pure adrenaline. Behind them, shouts echoed as guards converged on their position. Amara and Jay provided covering fire, dropping anyone who got too close. They reached the ground floor, but the main exits were already swarming with serpents. They were trapped, surrounded, outnumbered 20-4. And then Marcus Kim appeared, Dante beside him, both armed and furious. Marcus's face was twisted with rage. "You should have stayed dead, girl." Amara raised her weapon, positioning herself between the Kims and her parents. "Let them go. This is between us." "There is no between us," Marcus snarled. "You're all dead. Right here, right now." Dante stared at Amara, and something like admiration flickered in his eyes. "I really did underestimate you. Your last mistake. We'll see." The firefight that erupted was chaos. Amara and Jay fought with desperate precision, protecting Victor and Linda while trying to find an exit. But the serpents had them boxed in. There was no way out. No escape. They were going to die here, all of them, and Dante was going to win after all. Then Victor Chun did what he'd been preparing to do since the moment Amara walked into that cell. He grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard, turned to his daughter, and smiled. It was a father's smile. Proud. Loving. Final. "Lotus flower," he said. "Run." "Dad, no." Victor charged the serpents, firing wildly, drawing all attention to himself. "Gio," he screamed. Marcus and Dante turned their weapons on him, and Amara watched in horror as her father took bullet after bullet, still advancing, still fighting, giving his family time to escape. Linda was screaming, trying to go to him, but Jay dragged her back. Amara stood frozen, unable to move, unable to process what was happening. Then Victor's hand found something on his belt. A detonator. And Amara understood. Her father, always planning, always prepared. He'd found the facility's charges, the demolition explosives meant for emergency destruction of evidence. "I love you, Lotus Flower," Victor said, meeting Amara's eyes one last time. "Finish this." He pressed the detonator. The world exploded. Fire and force and the sound of everything ending. Amara felt Jay tackle her, pulling her and Linda toward a side exit as the facility began to collapse. Behind them, flames consumed everything. Marcus, Dante, the serpents, and Victor Chun, making one final sacrifice to buy his family's freedom. They burst out into the night, the facility burning behind them. Fire reflected off the water, turning the port into a vision of hell. Linda collapsed, sobbing, and Amara fell beside her, holding her mother as they both cried for the man who'd given everything. Jay stood watch, giving them a moment, just a moment, to grieve. "Then, we have to go. More serpents will come." Amara helped her mother up, and they ran through the port, away from the flames, away from the death. They found Jay's truck and drove, leaving Busan behind as dawn broke over the ocean. In the back seat, Linda Chen held her daughter and wept for her husband. Amara held her mother and felt something inside her break and reform, harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous. Victor Chen was dead. The Crimson Dragon's leader had made his final stand. But his daughter was alive. His wife was alive. And the war he'd started was far from over. 3 months passed like a fever dream. The news reported the Busan facility explosion as a gang war gone wrong. Multiple casualties, including suspected leaders of both the Steel Serpents and Crimson Dragons. The official narrative was that both organizations had been decimated, their power structures collapsed, their territories up for grabs. The truth was more complicated. Marcus Kim was dead, confirmed by dental records pulled from the rubble. But Dante's body was never found. Some said he'd escaped before the explosion. Others claimed he'd been vaporized in the blast. Amara didn't care which version was true. Dead or alive, Dante Kim had taken everything from her. She and Linda had gone underground immediately after Busan, hidden by contacts her father had cultivated over the years. A priest in a rural church who owed Victor Chen his life. A doctor who treated their injuries without asking questions. People who understood that sometimes the right side of history wore the wrong uniform. Linda grieved like a woman who'd lost half her soul. She barely ate, barely spoke, spent hours staring at photos of Victor with tears streaming down her face. Amara wanted to comfort her, wanted to tell her mother everything would be okay. But she'd learned that some lies were too cruel to speak aloud. Instead, she focused on what she could control. Training, planning, preparing for what came next. Because while the world thought the dragons were finished, Amara Chen was just beginning. She trained every day in the church basement, pushing her body past its limits. The injuries from Busan healed slowly, leaving scars that would never fully fade. Her side where the knife had caught her. Her ankle that still ached when it rained. But pain was just weakness leaving the body, her father used to say. And Amara had no room left for weakness. Jay visited when she could, bringing news from Seoul. The detective had been suspended from the force after her involvement in Busan became known. No charges filed, but her career was effectively over. She didn't seem to care. Some things mattered more than badges. The trafficking ring is dismantled, Jay reported during one visit. The girls you saved, they're testifying. We're building cases against dozens of Serpent associates. What about Dante? Amara asked, working through combat drills. No confirmed sightings. But my contacts say someone's been quietly consolidating what's left of the Serpents. Paying off debts, making promises, rebuilding from the shadows. Amara stopped mid-strike. He's alive. Maybe. Or maybe someone else is using his name to claim legitimacy. Jay paused. Does it matter? It matters. Amara resumed her training, each movement precise and deadly. As long as even one serpent breathes, my father's sacrifice meant nothing. Linda appeared in the doorway, watching her daughter move through forms that Victor had taught her years ago. You look just like him, she said quietly. When he was young and angry and thought he could change the world through violence. Did he change it? Amara asked, not stopping her routine. He tried. Built something he thought was better than what came before. Drew lines he thought mattered. And in the end, those lines got him killed. Linda's voice cracked. I don't want to lose you too, baby. Amara finally stopped, turning to face her mother. You won't lose me. But I can't let this go. The Serpents destroyed our family. They're trafficking children. There. I know what they are. Linda stepped forward, cupping Amara's face. I also know what revenge costs. It took your father from us. How much more will you sacrifice? Everything if I have to. Linda's eyes filled with tears. You're 18 years old. You should be in university, falling in love with someone who deserves you, building a life that doesn't involve guns and death, and... That life died in a car crash 3 months ago. Amara's voice was gentle but firm. The girl who wanted those things burned in that facility with Dad. What's left is someone who knows exactly what she has to do. Which is what? Hunt down every serpent in Seoul? Get yourself killed trying to avenge a man who'd want you to live. Dad's last words were, finish this. Not run away. Not be safe. Finish this. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Linda stared at her daughter, seeing the transformation that 3 months had wrought. The softness was gone, burned away by grief and rage. What remained was something harder. Something dangerous. Something that looked terrifyingly like Victor Chen in his prime. Then I can't stop you, Linda finally said. But I can help you. Your father wasn't the only Chen who knew how to fight a war. I handled strategy, finances, intelligence. Everything he did publicly, I did in the shadows. She pulled out a laptop. Dragon's heart isn't the only weapon we have. I've been building my own network. And I think it's time we used it. Over the next weeks, Linda showed Amara the full extent of the Chen family's power. Bank accounts scattered across dozens of countries. Safe houses in every major city. Contacts in law enforcement, government, even rival gangs. Victor had built the public face of the Crimson Dragons, but Linda had constructed the skeleton that held it all together. Your father thought he was protecting me by keeping me out of the violence, Linda explained, showing Amara encrypted files. He didn't realize I was the one making half his wars possible. The Serpents thought taking out Victor meant taking out the dragons. They forgot about me. What's the plan? Amara asked, studying the intelligence. We leaked Dragon's heart. Strategically. To journalists, law enforcement, rival gangs. Every piece of evidence your father collected, released in waves that maximize damage to the serpents and their allies. They'll know it came from us. Let them know. Let them understand that the dragons aren't dead. We're just done playing by their rules. They began the campaign immediately. Anonymous tips to investigative reporters. Evidence packages to prosecutors who couldn't be bought. Financial records showing exactly how the serpents had built their empire on trafficking in drugs and blood money. Within weeks, arrests started. Serpent lieutenants caught in raids. Financial accounts frozen. Supply chains disrupted. The organization that had thought itself untouchable was hemorrhaging from 1,000 cuts. But Dante remained free. Alive or dead, his shadow hung over everything. And Amara couldn't rest until she knew for certain. The answer came 2 months after they'd started their campaign. Jay called with information from one of her remaining contacts in the force. "We've got a location," Jay said without preamble. "Dante Kim. He's alive, and he's been hiding in a safe house in Gangnam. My source says he's planning to flee the country tonight. If you want him, it has to be now." Amara looked at her mother, who nodded once. Permission. Understanding. Acceptance. "Send me the address," Amara said. She prepared methodically. Weapons cleaned and loaded. Body armor secured. Hair pulled back in the warrior braids that had become her signature. In the mirror, she barely recognized the girl who'd woken up excited for her engagement party 6 months ago. That girl was dead. This woman was something else entirely. Linda appeared behind her, holding something. "Your father wanted you to have this. I was saving it for your wedding, but..." She trailed off, holding out a necklace. Not Dragon's heart, but something else. A pendant shaped like a lotus flower, delicate and beautiful and deadly in its symbolism. "The lotus blooms in mud," Linda said, fastening it around Amara's neck. "It rises from darkness into light. That's what you are, baby. What you've always been. My lotus flower." Amara touched the pendant, feeling its weight. A reminder of who she'd been and who she'd become. "When this is over, what happens to us? We rebuild. Differently this time. Better. The way your father always wanted but never figured out how to achieve." Linda kissed her daughter's forehead. "Now go. Finish this. Then come home to me." Jay was waiting outside with a car. They drove to Gangnam in silence, 2 women who'd become warriors through necessity rather than choice. The safe house was in an expensive high-rise, the kind of place where neighbors minded their own business and security could be bought. "I'm coming with you," Jay said as they parked. "This is personal. It became personal for me the moment my sister died. Dante doesn't get to walk away. Not from you, not from any of us." Jay checked her weapon. "We finished this together." They entered the building through a service entrance, avoiding cameras and security guards who'd been paid to look the other way. The safe house was on the 15th floor, and they took the stairs, moving silently through the concrete stairwell. At the door they paused. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. Behind that door was the man who'd destroyed Amara's family, who'd pretended to love her while planning her death, who represented everything wrong with the world they lived in. Amara kicked the door open, weapon raised, ready for anything. The apartment was empty. Furniture covered in sheets, everything packed and ready for transport. They'd missed him. He was already gone, escaped to whatever new life he'd planned, leaving them with nothing but, "Hello, Amara." She spun, and there he was. Dante Kim, standing in the bedroom doorway, looking exactly like the boy she'd loved and nothing like him at all. He was thinner, scarred from Busan, but his eyes held the same cold calculation they always had. "You came," he said, almost fondly. "I knew you would. Even left the door unlocked to make it easier." "This is a trap," Jay hissed. "Of course it's a trap," Dante agreed. "But not the kind you think. Look around. No backup. No weapons. Just me, waiting for the girl who can't let go." Amara's finger tightened on the trigger. "Give me one reason not to pull this trigger right now." "Because you want answers first. You always do. That's what separates you from people like me, Amara. You need things to make sense. You need closure. I need you to stop talking like you know me. But I do know you. I studied you for 8 years. Every smile, every dream, every fear. I know that you're here because you think killing me will fix something. That it'll bring your father back, or make the pain stop, or prove you're not like the rest of us." Dante stepped closer, and both women raised their weapons. "But it won't. Killing me just makes you another player in a game that never ends." "My father tried to end it," Amara said. "And look where that got him. Dead in an explosion, leaving you and your mother to pick up the pieces. Is that what you want? To die for principles that don't actually change anything? Better than living without them. Dante laughed, bitter and genuine. There's the Chen family pride. That beautiful, stupid belief that honor matters in a world built on blood. Your father never understood that the only rule that matters is survival. Everything else is just decoration. You're wrong, Amara said quietly. My father understood perfectly. That's why he chose to die fighting instead of living as something less than human. And now you're going to do the same thing? Throw away your life to prove a point. No, I'm going to throw away yours to protect everyone you'd hurt if you lived. She pulled the trigger. The gun clicked empty. Amara's blood ran cold as Dante smiled. Did you really think I'd let you walk in here armed and dangerous? Your detective friend's contact? He's been on my payroll for months. Every piece of intelligence she's been feeding you came from me. Every move you've made, I've known about. Jay's weapon was similarly useless. They'd been played from the start. Dante pulled his own weapon, aiming it casually at Amara. Now we have a choice. I can kill you both right here, eliminate the last obstacles to my rebuild of the Serpents. Or you can walk away. Disappear. Live whatever life is left to you, knowing that I won the game your father started. There's a third option, Amara said. She moved faster than she ever had in her life. Combat training that had been drilled into her since childhood erupted in a burst of violence. She was on Dante before he could fire, her hand redirecting his weapon, her knee driving into his ribs. They went down together, fighting hand-to-hand with deadly intent. Jay moved to help, but Dante had planned for that too. Hidden compartments opened, and suddenly there were armed men emerging from concealment. The detective engaged them, gunfire erupting in the enclosed space. Amara and Dante fought like demons. Every move he made, she countered. Every strike she threw, he blocked. They were too evenly matched, both trained by the same principles, both fighting with everything they had left. You can't win, Dante gasped, blocking her knife strike. Even if you kill me, the Serpents continue. Someone else takes over. The game never ends. Then I'll end them too, Amara snarled, her blade finally finding flesh. Dante screamed as the knife sank into his shoulder. Amara twisted it, watching pain explode across his face. This man who'd pretended to love her, who'd murdered her father, who represented everything wrong with their world. Any last words? She asked, pulling the blade free, raising it for a killing strike. Dante met her eyes, and for just a moment, she saw something real behind the mask. I really did love you. Once. Before I knew better. I know, Amara said. That's what makes this easier. The knife descended, but Dante rolled at the last second. Her blade struck the floor where his heart had been moments before. He kicked out, catching her injured ankle, and she went down gasping. They struggled, both exhausted, both injured, both knowing this was the end for one of them. Dante's hands found her throat, squeezing. Amara's vision began to gray, but her fingers found the lotus pendant her mother had given her. She ripped it off, the chain breaking, and drove the sharp edge into Dante's eye. He released her, screaming, clutching his face. Amara rolled away, gasping for air, reaching for Jay's fallen weapon. Her fingers closed around it, just as Dante lunged at her one final time. She fired. Once. Twice. 3 times. Dante Kim fell, blood spreading across the expensive hardwood floor. He looked up at her, surprised, as if he genuinely believed he was untouchable. His lips moved, trying to form words, but only blood came out. Then he was still. Behind her, Jay finished off the last guard. The apartment fell silent, except for their labored breathing. Amara stood over Dante's body, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No closure. Just exhaustion and the weight of another death added to her collection. Is it over? Jay asked. It's over. They fled before police arrived, disappearing into Seoul's streets like ghosts. By the time authorities reached the safe house, all they found were bodies and questions. The investigation would go nowhere. It always did when the victims were criminals. Amara returned to the church as dawn broke, exactly as she'd promised her mother. Linda was waiting, and the relief on her face when she saw her daughter alive was almost painful to witness. It's done, Amara said simply. Linda pulled her into a crushing embrace, and for the first time since Busan, Amara felt herself break. She sobbed into her mother's shoulder, releasing months of grief and rage and pain. Linda held her, whispering comfort in English and Igbo and Korean, 3 languages woven together like their family had been. When the tears finally stopped, Amara pulled back. What now? Now we rebuild. The dragons, but different. Better. Your father's vision without his blind spots. We'll still operate in the shadows, but we'll draw lines. Real lines. No trafficking. No exploitation. We become what he always wanted to be, but never quite managed. And the other gangs? Let them know the dragons aren't extinct. We're just evolved. Anyone who crosses the lines we draw will learn why your father was feared. Linda smiled grimly. And they'll learn that his daughter is even more dangerous. 6 months later, Seoul's underworld whispered about a new power rising from the ashes. The Crimson Dragons, led now by a woman and her daughter. They operated differently than before, targeting traffickers and predators, building an empire on the corpses of those who preyed on the weak. Amara Chen became a legend. The Black Mafia Heiress who'd survived betrayal, rescued her mother, and rebuilt her family's power from nothing. Some called her ruthless. Others called her justice. She didn't care about labels. She stood on the balcony of their new headquarters, looking out over the city her father had loved. The lotus pendant hung around her neck, alongside Dragon's heart. 2 symbols of who she'd been and who she'd become. Jay joined her, no longer a detective but something else. An ally. A friend. A sister in arms. Got a hit on a trafficking ring operating out of Incheon, Jay reported. They're moving girls as young as 12. Amara's expression hardened. Then we moved tonight. Full team. No survivors among the traffickers. Just like that. No hesitation. My father hesitated. Tried to work within rules that the serpents ignored. It got him killed and nearly destroyed everything he built. Amara turned to face Jay, and her eyes held the cold certainty of someone who'd chosen their path and made peace with it. I won't make his mistakes. The monsters of this world don't deserve mercy. They deserve exactly what they've given their victims. And what does that make us? The thing that goes bump in the night. The reason evil looks over its shoulder. The proof that some debts can only be paid in blood. Amara checked her weapons, each movement practiced and precise. My father built an empire on honor. The serpents built one on cruelty. I'm building something new. Something the innocent can hide behind, and the guilty will fear. That's a hell of a legacy. It's the only one worth leaving. They moved into the night, 2 women who'd been forged by tragedy into something dangerous and necessary. Behind them, the city glowed with millions of lights, each one representing a life that could be protected or destroyed depending on who held power. Amara Chen held power now, and she'd learned from the best and worst teachers how to wield it. Her father had taught her honor. Dante had taught her ruthlessness. Her mother had taught her strategy. And the world had taught her that sometimes the only way to fight monsters was to become something even they feared. As she disappeared into Seoul's shadows, ready to deliver justice to those who thought themselves above it, Amara carried her father's dream forward in a way he never could have imagined. The lotus had bloomed in the mud, and its thorns were sharp enough to draw blood. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed Amara's complete transformation from gang princess to warrior queen. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of her journey. Was she right to choose revenge over peace? Could she have walked away? And most importantly, would you want to see what happens next in her war against Seoul's underworld? Hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning of the Crimson Dragon's resurrection. Like this video if you believe sometimes justice requires getting your hands bloody. And remember, in a world where monsters wear human faces, sometimes the only answer is to become the bigger monster. Until next time, stay safe out there, and never forget that even the most beautiful flowers can have deadly thorns.